Okay, so now we are going to look at each one of the painting, and I'm going to tell you a little story about each one, so you might get a deeper sense of what the image expresses. So the book is cut in 4 parts. Part 1, childhood and ancestors, and here I have a little quote for each part. Art is a wound turned into light. George Black.
Immaculate Conception, not, takes place in the dark setting of World War II that surrounded my birth. Spring has just arrived, and the rumbles of war have been silenced by a moonless night. Oblivious to the cold dampness running down the bedroom walls, 2 bodies wiggle with restraint under heavy blankets. Father and mother are coming to their nightly pleasure. A Nazi soldier oozes in and out of the walls, as in the recurring dream of my childhood, while on the horizon fiery bombing, dismembered boots, and SS helmets explode into the starry sky. An immaculate conception this is not, rather a fantasy imagining of the intimate moment of copulation when my father seeded my mother and the specific design of my being was conceived. A dark labor between 2 beings exhibiting bodily features of mythic proportions. The mother dominates the painting with her large pink body shaped as a grotesque version of the Celtic Big Sow creatrix. Eyes closed, mouth open, toes wiggling in orgasmic pleasure, she holds open the lips of her huge vagina, symbol of her creative power, while embracing her lusty lover whose bombastic organ matches hers. His own body has half shifted into Pan, the goat-footed god of springtime, fertility, and hedonistic pleasures. Out of her large loin, 10 cookie-cutter children are expelled onto her gray cloak, while a child's embryo, my own, has lodged itself into the mother's breast, half pink sweet baby Jesus, half blue cold-clawed critter. Your father's mechanics worked very well, Mother bragged to me one day when I was caring for her in her old age. Every day without failure until his first stroke. I quickly processed the data. Father had his first stroke at age 86, and he married Mother at age 31, which means they had exactly 55 years of lovemaking, ending every night with an orgasm, like clockwork. How many orgasms does that amount to? Too many to count. Such potency might be better expressed, not by number, but by magnitude, hence the size of their sexual organs in the artwork.
So, Immaculate Conception was one of the first paintings I did during my very first week at Esalen. The honesty of the work I was able to create during those 7 days amazed me. I could never have told my story in words. My sense of privacy would have been too threatened. Images are safer. They leave more room to interpretation. After working on this painting for 3 days, I felt I was finished, but the teacher pushed me into working some more on it. So reluctantly, I picked up a tiny brush and I started painting with the tiniest little stroke. And so to my own surprise, 20 minutes later, I was still enjoying painting teeny flowers on the mantle of the mother. And that's when I realized that I had transformed the grotesque big sow into the great mother. The violent anger, the sense of being abandoned and rejected that I was harboring since birth, and which resurfaced as I worked on this painting, had transformed into a state of grace. I was now able to see my mother for the glorious being that she is, her mother, my mother. So this painting gave me my first experience of reversal. It made me understand how old memories and dark emotions were still impacting my life, how my inner stories were still dictating my sense of self and the world. Right there and then, I fell in love with art as a healing practice. So 1,001 baby girls drown in Chinese rivers every year. I come from a family of 10 children, and we lived in a big country house with a farm called La Boulette. Our father was a traditionalist who only dreamed of one thing and only one thing: having a son who would perpetuate his name on his domain. But instead, he had 8 daughters in a row, and then 2 boys. And I am this 8th daughter. So, what am I going to do with another girl? Father joked when I was born. The next morning, he saw the gardener put a litter of kittens in a burlap bag to throw them into the river, as was done in those days. So, father told him, "Francois, why don't you put my daughter into that bag too?" Of course, it was a joke, but a joke can drill its way into your subconscious better than the truth. "I'm a girl, I'm not wanted" was the message I interiorized. And it will take most of my life to disidentify from that sense of not being wanted, not being enough. Here I am portrayed as a 9-year-old little schoolgirl. I have been picked up in a car by a stranger on the way back from school. And before I knew it, he grabbed my hand and forced me to touch his penis. For the sheltered girl that I was, this was a horrifying experience. I couldn't speak about it to anybody, not to my mother, not to my sisters or brothers, not even to myself. So the event got buried in my memory, completely forgotten, until painting brought it back to consciousness some 50 years later. So this relatively small event became very harmful, mostly because it remained unprocessed. In addition to the psychological issue, my capacity to remember was diminished. Embraced by the mother came with a sense of urgency. I was barely finished with the previous painting that I felt compelled to keep working on the same subject. And this is the image that came up. It looks like a Hindu goddess embracing the infant Krishna. So at first I couldn't figure out what this image had to do with my trauma. Then later, actually through the process of writing, it finally came to me. Here at the bottom there is the little girl that has been actually thrown out of the car into a ditch. In the previous painting, we were looking at the event from the inside of the car. In this painting, we are looking at it from above, as if the girl had an out-of-body experience. So during the writing process, I realized that the painting had linked this car event with a spiritual experience that I had actually 5 years later when I was watching a documentary on an Indian yogi. So through the creative act, a connection was made between the traumatic event and the spiritual experience. And in the first painting, the girl is calling for mother. In this one, she is embraced by the mother. So her call has been answered. So with the first painting, I experienced the revealing power of art, and with this one, the healing power of art. So trauma has been transformed into a doorway to a deeper connection with the psyche and creativity. Pegasus, the wild and fiery mythic stallion, speak of my adolescent rebellion. Sex and violence revisit the childhood trauma explored in the previous paintings, but this time fusing it with 2 ulterior events. Now, slight thigh. Slight thigh refers to our great-great-grandmother born in 1810. In her youth, she benefited from the freedom given to women after the French Revolution, so much so that her bourgeois family called her slight size, which is a nickname that points to the frivolous nature of a woman who lifts her leg too easily. But in her old age, however, she was constrained by the piety of the Victorian era, which is expressed here as an invasion of her woman's body. Love taboo. Love taboo takes a transgenerational trauma out of denial and brings the family's darkest secret into the limelight. Here we have a beautiful young mother holding her infant son lovingly, too lovingly. Her hands hold him tight, too tight. With claw-like nails and dark blue skin, those are the hands of the devouring mother. This is the portrait of our grandmother who had an incestuous relationship with her son. Whether it was consummated or remained strictly on the emotional level, we will never know. What we know is what an aunt told our mother many times. Your mother has exaggerated. It was no longer maternal love, it was simply love. Here at the bottom again of the right corner is our mother clutching at arm's length a huge heart crossed over by a do not enter sign. Being rejected from her mother-brother relationship, mother reacted by keeping love at bay, touching her old children, holding them, embracing them, or kissing them goodnight was perceived as dangerous, off limit. The image of our mother chained to her children helped me realize that maternal bonding was experienced as bondage. Mammy the Legendary. Mammy the Legendary could be considered a visual eulogy to my grandmother. A young girl cries for her mammy on her deathbed, surrounded by a vivid medley of childhood memories associated with her grandmother's wondrous spirit. Through rare redeeming moments, my grandmother transmitted to me her love of the sea, of avant-garde poetry and literature, and especially her love of art. But let's not forget that this is the woman who loved her son too lovingly. Working on this painting gave me an opportunity to explore how we, as families, can gloss over the horrifying aspect of people's behavior and transform them into mythic personages. Part 2. Life in Hollywood. I don't paint my dreams or nightmares, I paint my own reality. Frida Kahlo. Samsara expresses the power relation that ties three intertwined fingers together. At the center is a kneeling woman whose skin has shattered to pieces like a broken mirror. She struggles with her partner whose own skin has been flayed. His bulging eyes and twisted mouth add a devilish spin to his look. The telltale that the painting represents a projection of the dominant subservient pattern at the core of their marital relationship. Kali the Dark Mother. Kali the Dark Mother invokes the wrathful energy of the mighty Hindu goddess of time, creation, and destruction, also known as the destroyer of evil forces. The painting functions as a healing prayer. I am begging Kali to heal my wounds. I'm 50 years old. My life is in shambles. My marriage is rocky. My sexual life on halt. I had 3 abortions. My neck has been torn. My career has fallen into the Hollywood trap. And delusions smother my spiritual life. My cup is full. It's time to empty it.
With its bold image of a goddess emerging from the depth of a large vagina nailed on a cross, is kneeling to the goddess a sacrilegious version of the crucifixion of Christ rendered by a mischievous Catholic schoolgirl looking for shock value? A feminist manifesto for the wounded feminine under patriarchal rule? Or a nod to Judy Chicago's dinner party?
Buddha nature. Buddha nature visualizes the different layers of conditioning that surround our deepest inner core. So here you see nature, survival, social layers, different layers, and in the center is our inner core. The painting offers an occasion to reflect on how much we are in touch with our essential nature and how much we are blinded to it by the layers upon layers of multiple conditioning that cover it. But in Buddhism, our inner core is understood as pure mind or Buddha nature, hence the title of the painting.
In the third day of my second 10-day meditation retreat with another 100 participants, I was doing yoga exercises led by Shinzen when suddenly a gargantuan rush of energy knocked me off my feet. A fireball uncoiled at the base of my spine, ran up my vertebral column, and exploded at the top of my head like a thunderbolt bursting into blazing white light. Words can't express the intensity of this initial flash. During those few seconds that felt like an eternity, my entire sense of identity burst open.
Here you see that's kind of a hand mirror, a circular hand mirror. So the circular hand mirror expresses this loss of self-identity. The mirror still holds the peaceful expression the woman presumably had before her Kundalini experience. So as the mirror falls, so does her ego fall. Her small sense of self shifts into a larger sense of self. She dissolves into the light. She is immersed in a world of supernal bliss where she is linked to the source. Later on, in a different retreat, I had another experience that related to the same Kundalini energy. Only this time, I experienced it as a cosmic orgasm.
A most intense orgasmic pleasure had overtaken me into a state of rapture. Even my most magnificent night with my most experienced and potent lover couldn't compare by far. My vulva had become a windpipe through which a flow of energy blew in from the entrails of the earth, melting my abdomen with pure ecstasy. Love was pouring out of my very pores. I felt connected with the entire universe. The bell rang, I stood up, and the feeling dissipated.
With this cosmic orgasm, I felt as if my interiors had become alive for the very first time. My womb had expanded into a blown-out ball that felt at once empty and filled with a sense of rapture. My experience was one of fullness, the feminine counterpart to the masculine experience of awakening as emptiness. Full bowing. Full bowing refers to meeting my first meditation teacher, Shinzen Young, encountering a tradition as old and respected as Buddhism that actually confirmed my personal experience felt somewhat of a miracle. Knowing at both cellular and intellectual levels that my deepest inner nature is one of divine compassion and wisdom came as a great relief from my Catholic upbringing focused on the original sin. The Sphinx. The Sphinx came as a raw expression of extreme anger. At the time, my husband was working in Hollywood as a talent manager. He had been able to sign a big client. The two of them became intimate instantly. I got lucky when I latched onto her, he used to tell me. It was magical. All seemed to be going as well as could be when 3 days before Christmas she called him and abruptly announced that she was firing him. Just like that. There had been no preliminary warning, no precursor signs. The news hit the two of us like a knockout punch. So I went to my studio and started unpacking. A big canvas was needed for a big drama. So quickly, a giant face took shape. When it was finished, it looked like the treacherous and merciless demon known in ancient Greece as a sphinx, hence the title, The Sphinx. But by then, my meditation practice had started to bear fruits. After my first outburst of negative emotion, I tried to meet my anger as pure energy, without a personal story attached to it. Two large feet with all-seeing eyes made their appearance on the canvas, which are recognizable as the foot of the Buddha. So they break through the scene as if it were a painted scroll, revealing in the process the infinite darkness of the great beyond.